questions that you answered in a science class a year ago? How about 2 years ago? 5 years? 10? Because there's one question that I specifically remember from a biochemistry textbook from, more than 10 years ago, because I'm a million years old. And the reason I remember this question is that it was about Eeyore. That's right, this Eeyore, the donkey from Winnie the Pooh. It didn't just reference Eeyore, it also referenced Candide from Voltaire's book of the same name. Both books are classics, and the author of this textbook used these two characters, Eeyore and Candide, as an example to illustrate some very specific characteristic of bacteria. Now, Eeyore is a famous pessimist. He always tries to sort of draw himself away from the group. He doesn't really want to participate. And Candide is very much the opposite. Even if the situation is objectively horrible, he will just go right in there and just have the experience and be part of it. As it happens, bacteria sometimes act like Eeyore and sometimes act like Candide. The way that bacteria move around is they spin a little it's called flagella. That's kind of their motor that makes them move around, and that's controlled by several different genes. And to find out which gene does which, you could switch them off one by one and then see what happens to the bacteria. And some mutations, if you take out one gene, the bacteria will just always go straight ahead, doesn't matter what's happening. And in another, they get very reluctant and they will always sort of be tumbling around and not really going in any particular direction. So the question in the textbook is as follows. Let me just go to the red page in this enormous book. So the question is, Eeyore and Candide. Bacterial chemotaxis mutants have distinctive personalities. A phenotype reminiscent of Eeyore, the persistent pessimist in Milne's Winnie the Pooh, arises from the loss of which gene? The loss of a different gene gives a phenotype resembling Voltaire's Candide, eternally optimistic, convinced that this is the best of all possible worlds. Which gene? The author of the textbook, Stryer, here used these analogies with literary characters that he assumed people would be familiar with to just make the question a bit more interesting and make it easier to remember. And I think it worked, because years later I still remember this question. I don't know the answer anymore, but I remembered even before looking it up that it had to do with bacterial chemotaxis and the way that bacteria move around. So I knew that there was something related to how bacteria move that have to do with always going straight ahead and being very optimistic, or being very withdrawn like Eeyore, and very pessimistic and kind of just not going towards anything. So I remembered that. It works. Metaphors are not used that often in scientific publishing, but not in academic writing anyway, but they're used quite often in popular science writing. And in the next video I'm actually going to be talking about the differences between a scientific academic article and a popular science book that mentions the same topic. So we'll actually look at one topic, look at a book, and at the scientific article. So subscribe so you won't miss that. It will go up in 2 weeks. It's very heavy. It was actually, despite this book being enormous, it was really easy to find, because the index in the back, it just has the word Eeyore in it, and that's how I originally found that question in the first place. Eeyore loves biochemistry.